You're listening to the Boomtime Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. For over 50 episodes, Boomtime has been the professional source for marketing information and inspiration. For more articles and episodes, visit us at boomtime.com and be sure to subscribe to the Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast on your iPhone or Android device to listen on the go. Now here's your host, JP Clement. Welcome to the Boomtime Digital Marketing Podcast. This is week 8 of your marketing funnel deep dive. And today we're talking about refining the funnel, analytics and KPIs, and some ways to look at how to make everything that we already talked about even better. So once you have everything set up, JP, where do you think is a good point to start looking at where there might be some areas of improvement?
Yeah, so hopefully when you set up your whole campaign, you define your KPIs, and also, and those KPIs should actually, and I don't know if we talked about that before, but those KPIs should be set up at every level of the funnel, right? Not just, or there should be a KPI pretty much for every step of the funnel. So you can monitor those, track to those, and see if, how things are going. In some areas, you probably will have multiple KPIs, and I would suggest that, those probably are the areas where you have more variables coming into play, more things going on. So I would say that, focusing on those areas where you have multiple KPIs is probably the first place to look. But the crux of all of this is that you have to start to track, right? You have to monitor, you have to look at your analytics on a regular basis, and then again go through all these steps of the funnel, look at your analytics for each of these, and you might right away see some things that don't look right or not working really well. But again, I think the areas where you have multiple KPIs or more complexity, if you want, is probably where you should look first, because there's going to be probably more thinking to do, more testing, more thinking about what's going on in those areas that you're going to have to do first.
What do you think is like a good frequency or cadence for reapproaching your funnel and making changes to your overall marketing workflow?
Yeah, well, it really depends on your business first. What are your sales cycles? How do you get people at what kind of frequency or cadence do you get people through your funnel? But and also it depends on what kind of tactics you're using in digital marketing, right? So some of them are going to have an impact right away. Some are going to take longer. So for instance, a Google ad or PPC campaign, you're going to see results right away. So you should check it, probably on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis. If you're doing like a, more of a content driven campaign or social media campaign where virality has an impact, then, the timeline is much longer. So you probably I would be looking at things at least on a monthly basis, but I wouldn't expect anything to really show up or tell you anything until about 2-3 months down the line. So again, a lot of variability, but you have to really think about what your business is like, what your sales processes are like, your sales cycles, and what tactics you're using to really inform the frequency at which and the timing with which you should look at your numbers.
What do you think are some essential tools that are pretty much indispensable for analyzing your funnel and refining your marketing strategies?
Yeah, well, the obvious one, it's free and it's great. It works really well, although they keep changing it, but it's Google Analytics. I mean, you can do a lot with just Google Analytics. If you set up, again, your KPIs right and your campaigns and your goals and everything right, you can tie a lot of things into Google Analytics, and in and of itself, it generates an amazing amount of data, and that's by far the most important tool that you can use. But there are also other tools that a lot of them are embedded in some other tools that you may be using for your digital marketing, such as we all know SEMrush. Although it's not really the core of your business, you can do a lot of analytics and tracking and monitoring of your social media if you're using their tools. Although you're primarily an SEO company, you can still do that there. So, but the Google, the suite of Google tools, Google Analytics, GTM, Google Tag Manager, all these things, are really critical because you can tie so many different things into that. And Yeah, so those are probably the most important ones. If you're doing email marketing campaigns, again, it's pretty deep depending on what you do. But some, not all email marketing companies are built or created equal. Mailchimp has amazing tracking and monitoring tools. Some other ones like Constant Contact and everything, probably not quite as refined, I would say, but again, Google, has its own insights, but it's good. Sorry, Facebook has its own insights, tools. They're pretty good, but again, you probably could get a better tool by going to a third party. That might cost a little bit more, but because Insights is free. But yeah, so those are the typical tools. And again, and there are a variety of tools for each of these types of analytics, but I would say start with Google Analytics. You're in pretty good shape. And it's amazing, by the way. I was on the podcast the other day, and the podcast host was talking to me about the fact that the company that sponsors them had done a survey in Europe, but I'm sure it's pretty much the same in the US. And only 20% of the people they surveyed in small and medium-sized businesses use Google Analytics, which is amazing. It's like no wonder people are having the trouble doing digital marketing.
Oh,
Yeah, that's just pretty shocking.
that's super shocking. And you mentioned the word survey. That's another great tool to look at this stuff. We talked about
Mhm.
NPS or
Yeah.
what's a good approach to surveys? Is there a cycle to doing them? Is there something that you should focus on? Maybe doing surveys in specific areas to gain some knowledge about that, or just throw surveys out on every part of your funnel, or what's a good approach to even doing surveys?
Yeah, I know. Again, so some of the it's a really good question. Some of the parts of the funnels, surveys probably wouldn't add a lot. Surveys are great. They give you a lot of great facts, especially if you set them correctly. Uh, right now, in this day and age, you can do surveys very easily with something like SurveyMonkey. Doesn't have to be expensive. You get a lot of really good data. But I think to me, they would be more appropriate in the parts like the lower parts of the funnel, where you're really trying to get to some really deeper kind of insights into why some of these behaviors you looking at through analytics are happening. There might be a little bit more psychology, a little bit more complex factors at play that make a survey really almost necessary to really figure out exactly what's going on. So I would say, yeah, probably it's things like advocacy, for instance, surveys. You're talking about NPS. That's a perfect example of, figuring out in the lower parts of the funnel what's going on with your campaigns.
I think that everybody kind of knows the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I feel like in marketing, it's kind of the opposite. Like you're always going to be testing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so even if you're not seeing, poor results or anything like that, it's always good to be testing and trying to make things better. Where are some things um, you think are most effective to test? Like we talked earlier in the series about how holding on to a customer is immensely cheaper than getting a new one most of the
Mm-hmm.
time. So do you find any value in testing different ways of maybe encouraging retention or other things if maybe that's not necessarily broken in the funnel?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, as we talked about, and as you just mentioned, retention is critical, and testing there, is important. I mean, I think we talked at some point about A/B testing or multi variant testing, and those are a little bit more advanced ways of looking at your marketing campaign. But I think it's critical. I think marketing is exactly the opposite. Or if it's not broken, don't fix it. Don't touch it. It's the exact reverse. You can probably always do better, and the market, because the marketplace is changing very rapidly. Marketing tools are changing, people's attitudes are changing. You can rest on your laurels. You can do the same campaign for more than a couple months or 3 months. You're gonna have to change things, and who knows, it might be working well, but what if it worked better, right? So there's testing and constant testing and trying to better your results should be part and parcel to whatever you do in digital marketing. But yeah, as you said, testing in the way of advocacy, retention, and all these areas is probably more of an impact than testing at the top of the funnel, for sure.
Very cool. Any other advice you'd like to add to the end of the series? Things that maybe we didn't touch on, or some things that you're very passionate about in marketing, maybe some philosophies that you think are very important for people who are, at this stage of listening to us for 8 weeks and all these things, just some things to think about.
Yeah. So first, I think my first thing that I would say is, it's a funnel, but it should be a circle, right? Should be a funnel that is a circle, if that makes any sense. You need, it's a full loop, and marketing is a loop, right? You're taking people through your funnel, but you're gonna have to use all that learning that you acquired through that process to actually keep feeding that funnel and keep refining each step of what you do within that funnel. The funnel is a great visual, but actually it should be, as I said, if we could find a Mobius strip funnel, that would be even better. Think about the loop. But I think, the things that we've talked about, and I keep repeating when I do guest podcasts, since I've been doing that a lot in the past few weeks, is you need to do your homework, right? It's like marketing is a discipline. It's not just a crazy creative endeavor. You need to do your homework, meaning you need to know a lot about your customers. You need to know a lot about your own company. You need to know a lot about the marketplace. You need to know a lot about your competitors. And if you just go in blind, it's not going to work. You need to do the research. You need to do the thinking. You need to create strategies. You need to set KPIs, as we've said many times. If you can't measure it, you can manage it. Marketing is a very disciplined approach, and digital marketing is exactly the same, as a subset of marketing in general. Taking shortcuts just doesn't work. Unfortunately, it'd be great if there are some silver bullets out there, but with the complexity of the digital marketplace, you have to be able to you have to take the time to do your homework, and set up your KPIs again, and track them and monitor them, and be very disciplined. If there were shortcuts, we probably wouldn't exist as a company. People would be able to do it themselves. So anyway, so I'd love to leave that with whoever has been listening for 8 weeks, hopefully, if I think it's still too overwhelming, we're here to help.
Yeah, I think one thing that you said that I really like is if you can measure it, you can manage it, right? So nothing's out of your control. You just need to figure out how to measure it. And that's
exactly.
There's your KPI right there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, thanks so much, JP. This concludes our deep dive into your marketing funnel. I hope you've enjoyed it. Go back and check out all of the past episodes, like and subscribe, and share it with some other people who might benefit from checking out this series.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Boomtime Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. For more episodes and to learn more about us, check us out at boomtime.com.